Slide has been around recently, I wanted to include him here because I think ever since Rock Slide became Wrong Slide, he's been mainly relegated to a background character. Rock Slide himself was also seemingly brought back just to be sacrificed during the Ten of Swords event in the lead up to the Otherworld tournament. He was one of the mutants who perished in Otherworld, allowing the mutants of Krakoa to learn that dying in Otherworld meant you basically couldn't be resurrected in the same way. Initially, it was actually believed you might not be able to be resurrected at all, but we later managed to bring back those fallen mutants. However, they were then very much changed by the experience permanently, turning Rock Slide into a very different entity, which we even renamed as Wrong Slide. Now, while Wrong Slide did recently appear back in April 2024, it's important to note that 1, in that appearance he was again just completely removed, just killed off, and 2, this technically isn't even the same character as Rock Slide, who perished way back during the Ten of Swords period during the Krakoan era, which was a few years ago now. It's actually weird to think that Ten of Swords happened that long ago. Feels in some ways like it was yesterday to me. I don't know, time is weird like that. Are there any events that you feel like just happened, but they definitely did not? Let me know in the comments. Eyeboy is a mutant with a higher level of perception because he's covered in eyeballs. Eyeboy might seem like a strange mutant and hero, but I'm gonna be honest, I cannot deny that I just downright love this guy. Even though, yeah, he's kind of a weird one to look at and to have, I don't know, thought up in terms of his existence even. Eyeboy has since been revealed to have more than just enhanced vision though. He can see things that others can't, basically seeing through to other planes at times, and also seeing and understanding the world around him on an atomic level, due to his inhuman level of sight. It's a pretty specific power, but can be super useful given the right circumstances. Eyeboy had a period in the Krakoan era where he was more relevant as he ended up on the X Factor team for a while, investigating mutant mysteries, pretty fun, but unfortunately he has not been as prominently featured since the end of that series and its wrap-up story Trial of Magneto. He has since appeared in the X-Men Unlimited series, which is part of Marvel's online-only exclusive Infinity line on Marvel Unlimited, but even there I don't think he's appeared since like early last year, so it's still been quite a minute. Even with her ability actually being super cool and super useful, it's still a super gross one to be honest. That's right, we're talking about Husk. And it's no surprise that we forgot who Husk was for a bit, only to remember her again briefly during the Krakoan era, before almost immediately having her disappear just as quickly after she reappeared, it feels like. Husk is a mutant and member of the X-Men who is able to shed her skin to reveal a new composite layer underneath. For example, she sheds a layer of skin and underneath she could be fiery. Mostly this just sounds pretty heckin' awesome. She can kinda do it with like any materials as well. However, there have been times when Husk has been mentally unstable, resulting in her having less control over her abilities, and shedding your skin involuntarily, I'm gonna be real with you, that would be super disturbing. Not just the idea of it, but also when Husk sheds her skin involuntarily, it gets like all patchy and freaky looking, so I'm not surprised that she just kind of comes into the spotlight and then fades away. A member of the version of X-Force which would evolve into X-Statics, Anarchist joined the group as a replacement member after the death of Slug. His powers include being able to produce electrochemical energy, which can be used to create powerful blast. How does he produce this energy? Why, through his acid sweat, of course. But that's right, when it comes to Anarchist, that is how he does it. Although the byproduct of his weird abilities are pretty awesome, the ability itself, sweating acid, honestly pretty nasty. Like sweat wasn't gross enough by itself. If you make it acid, it just kinda gets more disturbing and gross. Anarchist showed up last, I believe, in the first Excellent series, but even there he only appeared in a flashback, sadly. He also was shown to have joined the mutant nation of Krakoa, fun fact, but he's even been more of a background character there in regards to that. For some of the weirdest heroes, we can look to the Great Lakes Avengers, who are generally known for being a much more wacky and often eccentric team of heroes whose powers are oddly specific in a way that usually doesn't seem too useful, I'd say. Case in point, Doorman. Doorman got a power upgrade after his death, but before that his powers weren't really that extraordinary, at least not in how they were presented in the comics. Also, he was stuck with the bizarre name of Doorman, so, you know, that could have probably been better. Doorman was so named because he could use his powers to act as a doorway for people, allowing them to pass through solid barriers. This, however, is actually because of Doorman's connection to, fun fact, the Dark Dimension, which he uses to allow people to pass through him, effectively teleporting them through barriers via the Dark Force. His attachment to the Dark Force also gives him a slew of other useful abilities at this point, similar to magic or Kitty Pryde, you might say, although, you know, neither of them are necessarily really attached to the dark dimension, they have their own things, but I digress. And fun fact, while Doorman is not known for being an X-Men and instead is known for his affiliation rather with the GLA or the GLI primarily, he also just so happens to be a mutant, which is why I've included him here. So in that way, he is somewhat connected to the team while still being very much removed from it. But hey, he's still a mutant, so I'm gonna count him. Bailey Hoskins is known for being the worst X-Man ever, probably because his powers are pretty lackluster sounding, to be real with you, but managed to pack a pretty big bang when they do get used. Bailey's powers involve self-detonation, but the only thing is that activating his powers will actually also, unfortunately, result in his death, meaning he can only use them once, and doing so will, yes, kill him. However, he does end up doing this, and in doing so actually saves the entire world, or at least a world. His good friend and teammate Miranda has reality warping powers that are extremely powerful, propelling her into her own classification of mutant even, beyond Omega. But even then, Miranda can't seem to interfere in this world. It seems that she needs some help from Bailey, and in sacrificing himself he not only saves the world, but also seemingly helps Miranda to fix it and set it right again. Bailey is definitely a mutant who was introduced only to disappear right after his story concluded because he was kind of just created just for that story, but this is also because his story is believed to be set in a totally different universe. His story is an interesting one, and the idea of his character is honestly just fascinating to me, and I'd love to see it in the main continuity. A mutant who is with the X-Men but whose power basically is a one-time use, making him appear pretty much normal despite being a mutant, and also making him mostly useless as a mutant superhero, at least for most of his life. While a student at the Xavier Institute, I don't believe Slick ever made the main X-Men team, nor has he been featured on any spin-off mutant team either, I believe, but still, Xavier Institute, so we're counting him. Slick's powers were charisma based. He basically exuded charisma and made himself likable. He could also cast illusions, as we'd later learn when he and Quentin Quire's Kid Omega butted heads. The two didn't get along, and at one point Quire used his powers to just dispel the illusions that Slick was constantly casting. Honestly, a pretty rude move, but that's what happened. These illusions made him appear as a handsome young man, but this was not actually his true appearance, it turned out. He also had a physical mutation as a mutant and appeared as a small, web-footed creature with pointed ears. Kind of impish or goblin looking, if you will. After having his true appearance revealed at the moment when he was working on a song with his girlfriend Tattoo, she broke up with him. I feel bad for Amber. She got one pretty cool story where she is clearly established as a college kid who just wants to live her life, and despite being a mutant, doesn't really let this define who she is or what she's capable of. And then, right after we think, wow, that's really cool, that's a really interesting take on what being a mutant could be like, Amber could be a really cool character to follow along, just even in this kind of slice of life story with her. Or especially if she was pulled into becoming a mutant superhero and had to join the X-Men or something like that. But no, she gets depowered during M-Day, or at least that's what I believe happened to her. I don't think she's ever specifically seen after her adventure with Jono that she appears in during her appearance in his Chamber series. Amber was definitely weird to behold because her default physical mutation made her green and covered her in spikes, but she was also a shapeshifter who typically shapeshifted into a beautiful woman, but only in her dreams, so only when she was really sleeping. She could also control this ability though, I think. I think she just mainly preferred to appear as she was naturally. Kind of like Mystique, but what if Mystique wasn't a baddie and just kind of wanted to chill and go to college? Honestly, a super interesting story. I wish Amber wasn't just this kind of one-off character, but that's kind of what she became, honestly. And that's about it for this one. I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.